What's going on, my little carcinogens? It is Asbestos Festus here. I got two articles here I'm going to be covering. That there's a 4th of July one that I neglected to cover because I actually honestly forgot about it. And then I also have one about Oregon going through a civil war right now, roughly. It is turning into a massive fascist state. So I'm going to tear apart the 4th of July article here, calling it racist, sexist, prejudice. And then I'm going to go into destroying the Huffington, well, not really destroying, but destroying, you know what I mean. I mean, making fun of it, but really bringing to light a massive issue. So the first article I'm going to be destroying is the 4th of July's ugly truth exposed, the Declaration of Independence is sexist, racist, prejudiced, how we can embrace the underlying spirit of the DOI, and also learn from its shortcomings. I'm going to be kind of briefly glossing over this and just calling this just a massive horse shit. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll link the archive in the description, or better yet, look on the top of the screen there. You'll see the actual link right up here. So there you go. Type that in. You can pause the video. So they go on to give you a little brief history of that, and then it said it did not condemn slavery. Well, actually, this is just a massive lie right here, because it indirectly condemns it. Because, here, I'll just read this whole paragraph right here for you. In the original list of grievances against King George III, future President Thomas Jefferson, who go out the document along with future President John Adams, as well as Ben Franklin, Robert Livingston, and Richard Sherman, wrote that he, referring to King George III, has waged a cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life, liberty, and the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating, carrying him into a slavery in another hemisphere, or incur miserable death in their transportation thither. I don't know what the fuck that means. Thither, weird old word that nobody fucking uses anymore. But right there, you can say, well, doesn't that condemns slavery itself? So obviously, this is a bit of a lie. This comes from Salon, so don't be completely surprised. Thomas Jefferson also acknowledged slavery was an abominable crime, and then wanted to get rid of it completely. Though the American Revolution was critical to the success, and he ultimately scrapped the passage in order to keep the colonies. So I guess it's saying that they scrapped it. I don't know. I haven't read Declaration of Independence. I don't really feel like reading a 300-year-old document. Not only that, I probably won't even understand what the fuck it even says, because it's an old world text that nobody even would remotely get close to understanding unless you're a modern lawyer, which they speak in that weird old world tongue. It's nice. I don't know if they actually scrapped the passage or not. I don't know. That might, but I don't know. The story's not quite simple. It's Jefferson's coming to political expedience, so it's big in moves, supporting slavery that in the end avoided more logical reasons for opposing it. The only reason why he would have kind of ignored all that is because you had cotton in the South. Alright? You had brutal winters in the North. Much like it is nowadays. You have very cold winters. You need something warm. You need something warm to protect your troops. You need guns. You need food as well. So, what's a better spot to get food, clothing, and weapons than the South? You need all of that to succeed. And that's why he kind of was like, well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So, and the British were actually targeting all these plants. They were burning them down, desecrating everything, killing slaves, all that shit. So, really, I will say in the end, we were lucky because they actually ran out of money. They could not afford to send more men over, more supplies, more everything. They just couldn't afford it. And they said, well, we'll just cut our losses and try again next time. And then when they finally got enough money to try to retake the War of 1812, we completely decimated them because we had already started building up everything. We had a decent army, we had decent weapons, we had a good lay of the land, and overall we had a massive victory over the Brits, just because they didn't know what they were in for. So I'm going to just kind of gloss over this too. It's a quote from Thomas Jefferson. Basically, he was calling a civil war that would end up in either the extermination of blacks or whites. He was kind of wrong there. in a way. But he actually did call a civil war, and he was right. The Civil War did actually happen. So props to him for fucking future sight. Um, and then he was kind of just condemning it. He's basically condemning slavery again. He says the views are not surprising for a man who, over the course of his life, enslaved more than 600 people. Um, and from the looks of that, that's coming from the Monticello.org, and that is, I don't know if that's misled or not. I seen a couple other, I read other sources citing that he had about 141 slaves, most of them being elderly. I think 1797, and in 1799 it was down to like 94 or 91. But he didn't really treat them as slaves. He kept them, they were indentured servants and indentured workers. He didn't whip them, he didn't beat them. He kept them well fed, he kept them well clothed, give them enough supplies to basically survive. So they were more along the lines of servants than anything, but still, nonetheless, I'm not condoning it. Didn't protect the rights of women. That's a joke. Very very funny joke. But it just goes on to tell how John Adams was sexist because he was like, well, no, we can't give women equal rights to men. I think this is doctored. I think this is doctored up a little bit, just because the way they frame John Adams, they frame him as being this alt-right fascist who hates women, and that's not true. He was really out there to kind of, I don't want to say protect women, but I kind of do get the vibe that he was like, well, nah. It's like, I get the vibe that he didn't want to take women seriously. So I mean, that's pretty much the only vibe that I get from it. Then they go on about bashing the alt-right. To be clear, Adams lived in 1776 and was a genuine hero, which would bring principal qualities which would never be found in a member of alt-right. So, but you know the way these leftists frame people on the alt-right, they go from moderate Democrats all the way over to Republican, and they're like, oh, that's alt-right. If you're a Republican, you're automatically alt-right. So, fuck them. They go on about, I think, quoting them. I'm not sure if this is his exact quote or not. I think it's doctored. I don't feel like really doing full-on research. So then we're going to go on to the part where they make fun of the Native, or to go on to the Native Americans. They say, to the disadvantage of Native Americans, Jefferson replaced the phrase property with happiness when saying that human beings' basic rights include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's because it sounds better. It just sounds better. Property does not equal happiness. The pursuit of happiness is like, well, just do what you feel like make you happy for the rest of your life. And some people wanted more land. They wanted more farming. They wanted to try to get a better life. So, I mean, there you go. So John Locke, they quote a quote from a book from John Locke or some weird shit. I'm gonna read this whole paragraph. That said, there was another interpretation of why happiness was a private property. What? No, property. What? No, it never was. Property was replaced with happiness. So I got this wrong. One that has less to do with Enlightenment philosophy and one ensuring that specific marginalized groups cannot assert their rights. This is George Peter Garnsey wrote. Well, this guy's a fucking joke. Thinking about property from antiquity to the age of the Revolution, Jefferson's excision of the word property might have been partially driven by a desire to avoid legitimizing the institution of slavery, which would have certainly been a good reason, but he might have also been motivated by a less seemly sentiment. I don't know what the fuck this guy's talking about. I'm going to skip over this quote too. There's really nothing worth. It just keeps saying slavery's bad. Considering that one of the Declaration's complaints against King George III was that he has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers some merciless idiot savages who, known rule of warfare, is undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexist conditions, its anti-Native American theories is depressingly plausible. Well, no. There was probably some Native American hatred going on, because whenever we were crossing the Mississippi, going out west to California to collect all the gold, a lot of Native Americans were raiding and killing and pillaging either other Native American tribes or people that were just passing through. Nobody was. We did have some allies. We did make allies. We also enlisted the help of Native Americans as well to help with patrols and help, protecting all the regular people, the regular civilians are just passing through looking for a better life. So, and the only reason why we pretty much just took the entire Midwest was because, well, more states, more representation, more land for the people. We can try to make a better life for everybody that's already here. So now everybody has equal opportunity wherever they want to live. So this guy, Matthew Raza, is a bit of an idiot. I think he's a lizard person, really. So I'm gonna cut off from that. We're gonna go on to the next article. Oregon GOP senators return to the Capitol after Dems agree to kill climate bill. Well, the whole debacle around this is that the Oregon governor, or the governor of Oregon, was trying to pass this massive, horrifyingly crippling, economically crippling greenhouse bill, giving you permits to, it basically gave you permits, a certain amount of permits, allowing you to pump out X amount of pollution. If you wanted to pump more pollution out, you had to buy permits from other people that were willing to sell, but you only had X amount of permits. So that was going to completely eradicate the people pretty much going to eradicate the poor people off the face of the earth. Because if you look at the cigarette, it's pretty much the same thing here with cigarettes. To get people to quit smoking, they moved on to e-cigarettes, which are slightly a little more expensive, but with added taxes and everything, the regular cigarettes end up costing a little bit more. So, in some areas it costs more, some areas it still costs a little less. But to help people quit smoking and to put a dent in the tobacco population, or the tobacco industry, they added this massive, 200% fucking tax on cigarettes, and thus, people moved over to the e-cigs. But you still have poor people that couldn't either quit or move over, so they were getting poorer because they can't afford their e-cigarettes. So I'm going to tear apart this article too. Oregon's Republican state senators will return to Capitol on Saturday following a week-long walkout over a proposed climate change cap-and-trade bill, which is what I was going on about. Senate Minority Leader Herman announced on Friday, so we'll just call him Herman Foreigner. Our mission walking out of this building was to kill the cap and trade, Foreigner said at a press conference, and that's what we did. 11. The way this works is that they need. Oh, this actually goes on into it. 11 Republican senators fled the state last week in order to deny Democrats the necessary quorum to vote and pass on an expensive greenhouse gas emissions cap and trade bill. But chaos quickly ensued as Governor Kate Brown authorized state. This is key here. But chaos quickly ensued as Governor Kate Brown, who is a leftist Democrat, authorized state troopers to find and retrieve them, and threats of violence emerged. So she went and found them, kidnapped them at gunpoint, and tried to force his vote. That should say something. This is a precedent of what the future is going to hold. No matter what's going to happen, this next election that's happening is going to cause a civil war. Whether Trump gets elected or some retard leftist gets elected, it will cause a civil war no matter what. So I say prepare now and hope for the best. The Democratic Party holds 1811 majority in the state Senate. Oregon law requires 20 senators to be in attendance to hold session. With all the GOP Senate members in hiding, the Senate was unable to vote on any legislation for 8 days, and the bill, once expected to pass, now faces almost certain death. Senate Democratic leader Peter Courtney indicated on Tuesday the bill no longer had enough support among Democrats, and Foreigner said Friday that both Courtney and Brown had privately assured him that their party would not be voting no. Oregon House Speaker Tina Kotek was one of the several prominent Democrats to decry the Republicans' drastic move, accusing them. No, this is fucking rich here. Oregon House Speaker Tina Kotek was one of the several prominent Democrats to decry the Republicans' drastic move, accusing them of threatening our democratic institution and subverting the will of Oregon voters. The video that I watched, it was by a guy by the name of Mr. Regan, and the video I watched, there was like a 75% of the population did not want this bill to go past. 75%. Not only that, they were accusing the Republicans, the normal people of this fucking state, of threatening democratic institutions subverting the will of Oregon voters. And it's just a massive fucking lie. Your party is the one that's holding people at gunpoint and forcing them to go in through this vote and basically forcing them to vote on this thing. B, they are not subverting the will of Oregon voters. They are withholding, or they're not withholding, they are supporting the will of the voters. They do not want this shit to go in past at all. They didn't even want they don't want anybody to leave Oregon, but they're trying to force. So let's read this quote here, right? This has been a dark week for the integrity of the legislature. Senate Republicans have been threatening our democratic institution and subverting the will of Oregon voters who know we need to act now. Their walkout has come at an immense cost to our institutionally and the planet. She is a fucking retard. She's a lizard person. She is a fucking lizard. If you think about it, there was a scientist that proposed that if we were to basically eliminate America out of existence, every man, woman, child, no power plants, no vehicles, no carbon emissions, no nothing. 0 carbon emissions from America. No people, no nothing. It would not even do anything to the planet. If you were to eliminate China from the face of the earth, it would not do anything. Climate change is natural. It's going to happen no matter what. Humanity might have had a small part in it, but it was going to change nonetheless. And if anything, if we're emitting a lot of CO2, think about it this way. If you got a lot of CO2, you're going to have more plant life. Plant more trees. They're like, well, we need to cut CO2 emissions. No, plant more trees, get rid of your big cities, put massive parks, build or plant a bunch of big trees, and that'll solve the issue. You'll have more oxygen. You see what I'm saying here? The Earth goes through natural changes, right? When the dinosaurs were in power, there was a lot of plants, but there was a shitload of oxygen, which allowed insects to actually grow to the sizes of fucking school buses. Can you believe it? Or can you imagine our giant cockroach the size of a school bus? Ugh. But that's because there was a shitload more oxygen. Well, what happened was, when all that oxygen started to go, I think it was after the meteor, all that oxygen pretty much went like that. Nearly. So there was little animals that managed to survive, but the amount of oxygen that was in the atmosphere was dramatically lowered. But CO2 was also lowered, but still was more. So hence, well, there you go. Now you got more plant life. Humans come in, start knocking off the plant life. Well, now your CO2 emissions are going to start going through the roof. We had a lot of more oxygen back then as well. Really, what we need to do is we need to plant more trees. The trees will suck up all the carbon emissions, pump more oxygen in the atmosphere. Simple. Literally, a dumbass brain solution from a dude in his fucking basement. Literally just solve the issue. Plant more trees. And we will be good. Warner was asked to comment on threats of violence that hung over the weekend lockout, or week-long walkout, which included one Republican senator implying that he would use deadly force on officers sent to retrieve him and law enforcement officials, closing the Capitol and law enforcement officials closing the Capitol on Saturday due to a credible threat from militia groups. No, you are upholding your Second Amendment rights. You are preventing a tyrannical government from trying to force you to do. The Second Amendment was created specifically for this reason, right? You have a tyrannical government that is starting to go rogue, that's starting to oppress people, pretty much on political views. This guy, Senator Brian Boquist, he is a fucking legend. I love this guy. Send bachelors and come heavily armed. meaning not married women, and bring a shitload of guns. Said last week ahead of the lockout. I'm not going to be a political prisoner in the state of Oregon. It's just that simple. He is right. He is holding. He is using his. He was going to exercise his Second Amendment right to protect his government and his people. So this is literally just a precedent of what the left is going to try and do. I'm also using ad blockers because fuck the HuffPost. Forgot to mention. Foreigner said he was unfamiliar with the threats made against the Capitol, but did respond to both remarks. You got to remember that at that time a lot of tempers were flaring. He said obviously his statement was not helpful. Well, no, but he's allowed to say that, and he's allowed to actually act upon it because you have a rogue government trying to oppress your people. When asked about the fear held by some cap and trade pundits that the state Democrats would continue to push the bill, Foreigner said he understood their concern. The trust in the Oregon State Capitol is at the lowest it's ever been. That's really good. And that saddens me. It is sad, though, but it's a good thing. But at the end of the day, we have a constitutional responsibility to get these budgets back and keep Oregon functional. There are only 2 days left in the legislative session. More than 100 bills are at risk of dying. But, when it was asked about it says, I hope so. So, as far as I know, this is from the 29th of June. As far as I know, none of this passed, so, good. This is some scary shit here. Really. If this is what it's going to end up turning into, where all of these people are going to try to oppress people and just force votes through at gunpoint, we can expect that when the Democrats get in the White House, they will do the same thing. It is imperative you do not vote for any Democrat unless you know that they are moderate and they're not extremists. So we're looking at the extremists. Sanders, what's the name of the fucking black chick? Who was really ripping on Joe Biden. Joe Biden's another one. What's her name? I forget her. I don't know. Very forget. Looks like a witch. What the fuck was her name? She said she was in. She said she was in the busing and the segregation. Her father was Indian and her mother was Jamaican or some weird shit. She was not part of anything in the '60s. I forget her fucking. But and there's a whole lot of them. So just don't vote. Don't vote for Julian Castro. Don't vote for any of them. They're all a bunch of lunatics. So unless you want a civil war, now we're gonna get civil war nonetheless. But unless you want to rapidly speed up possible timeline to get to the Civil War, vote for Democrat. If you want to try and delay it, hopefully try to prevent, you vote for somebody who's in the Republican Party. And if Trump is still on the block to be revoted, and just cut your losses and vote for him. That's what I'm doing. But anyway, that's the end of this massively long video. I hope you enjoyed it. This was pretty insightful, and I think I used the wrong word. I used that word wrong. This is enlightening, really. So, yeah, I'll catch you all later. Peace.